Good morning, everyone. So today you and I are going to talk about test-driven development. So let's get into it. Now, test-driven development is a topic for a lot of controversy and a lot of discussion, and it's the sort of thing that everybody in IT has an opinion on it, almost everybody. And most of the time it's either going to be, I don't like it, and other times it's going to be, I really like it. It's the only way. There's no other way to write software, yada, yada, yada. And for me, when it comes to test-driven development, I would like to just share some of the things that the way that I think about test-driven development, and when I apply it personally, and or rather how I try to think about it. And I will also finish by stating a few things that I really like about it, and some stuff that, of course, it's not going to be a video from me if it's not about the pros and the cons, because being objective, that's what we're all about here, or trying at least. Trying my hardest. Sometimes I can't be objective, and then you have to just kind of take what I say with a pinch of salt. But let's get into it. So, test-driven development, when I first learned how to do this, it was back in my Java days, and my teacher was an absolutely lovely guy who had spent most of his life working at mid-sized to larger companies as a Java developer. And for those developers out there who may not be aware of this, there's a very specific sort of ecosystem when you work in Java at that type of environment, basically. And usually the trend is that test-driven development, well, it's not always true. It kind of depends on the company, but the usual case I see is that test-driven development is more emphasized in larger companies, because larger companies usually have this they have the luxury of deeper pockets, and the perception from their point of view is, and usually this is how it goes. It starts out with companies going very light on testing until they start getting because as the system grows and it becomes more complicated, you will have more bugs and more regressions, and you will, at some point, somebody's going to see that, every time we release something, we have 3 or 4 regressions that we have to spend even more time on. And you'll get to that magical sweet spot where the time it takes to fix all the bugs that are caused every time you release something without unit testing and that sort of thing is actually higher than the time it takes to write the unit test. And then it becomes more of a political discussion, really. Do you do it? Don't you do it? And then you have the other side of that spectrum, where you have people who are, which I like to call them philosophers, the type of developers who will argue that test-driven development, and these people, be a little bit careful with them, because if somebody is telling you that test-driven development is something that you should always do no matter the situation, they are lying to you, or rather they have an opinion that I do not support, and I don't support it because of this philosophical idea I have. My philosophical idea about test-driven development is this. Ask yourself the question, why are you writing this test? That's a little bit of an individual thing for a lot of people. The way that I think about it is this. I am writing a test so that I can be sure that the thing that I am writing is going to work the way that I expect it to. That means that I, who am the creator of this code, is going to write a unit test depending on how difficult the code that I'm writing actually is. Which means that if I'm writing something very trivial, I know, because I am as an experienced developer, I know that there's not much that this function can do wrong, or rather there's a very low risk that I will get this code wrong. A good example of this is in theory, if you wanted to do, if you made a function that added 2 numbers together, in a test-driven development environment, you would write the test first, and then you would write that function. But since that function is the intended use case, and for the circumstances, I, as a programmer, would deem that to be fairly trivial logic. Therefore, the test will actually cost me long-term more to make than it takes me to just write the code. And the test won't give much in terms of value because it's most likely just going to be a test that never fails. And that's what you're after. What you're after is to have tests that will make sure that as time progresses, that they assert that the intention that you had when you originally build this piece of software it stays intact, or at least that it warns you if you create an issue, if you start working on one thing and then it starts creating issues somewhere else. That's where you want the test to actually fail and for you to actually be alarmed about it. Warned about it. So that's when I wouldn't write a test. And I'm saying front-end development, for example, there's a lot of people who will tell me that they think that you should assert different things about UI components and all that stuff. And I say, yeah, I think that there could be a value in unit testing your UI components, but I will argue that that value is fairly low in comparison to other sorts of tests that you could be writing. And my argument is that you should focus on writing tests for things that are truly complex, or things that have and you get a little bit of a feeling for this, something that will have a large impact on the code. I'll give you a good example. I'm working today, actually, for the past 2 days, I've been working on a feature that basically it's a notification system type of deal that is going to be implemented, that's going to be shipped fairly soon. And the idea is basically that different things within the system needs to create a record. So I have a service that is going to, depending on what type of message that you want to create, is going to contextually know, all right, so this happened or that happened and so forth for different parts of the system. And it only happens in different type of situations, right? That is a good example of where I absolutely, there's no question that I have to write unit tests and probably a few integration tests as well. Because what I'm actually doing here is that I am going to existing functionality and enriching it with more functionality, which means that if I have a single method in some massive structure of code that is vital for the system, that is basically just waiting for a specific situation to occur and then it's going to create a message, I have to test that, because if my system depends on that event being dispatched during very specific type of circumstances, I have to make sure that I'm doing it in the correct way, and that if something unforeseen happens, that it doesn't generate a message or a false positive, basically. That's a very good situation for writing a unit test, because odds are that since this is a single message, a single line function that is going to be included in a bunch of other logic, if that other logic changes, this intended feature might actually break because of stuff that's happening elsewhere in the system. It's basically just, it's the case where I've added a dependency to another piece of logic. So it's very likely that somebody is going to change that other logic and ergo maybe break my story or my feature. That's why you need a unit test, to make sure that that doesn't happen. Because the unit test is now going to communicate to whoever comes in second and start changing that other logic that, oh shit, I have to remember these messages, because now that I changed that, I have to make sure that the messages are still intact. That's a good use case. And apart from these two ideas I have about test-driven development, which is, as I said, I'll just summarize, very simple logic, things that are where it's very low value for you to write the test. There's no, remember, the test is a cost. It's something you write because you want to be sure that the thing that you're making is working. So if you, for some reason, feel that you can be 100% sure that this will always work, there's no reason to write a test. But if you're writing something that you're very unsure, or that poses a big risk over time, that's when you want the test. And apart from that, I can only say that working in a test-driven development fashion, at least for me, especially since I'm working in Scala these days, in a typed environment with a good IDE, test-driven development is, to me, it's basically like meditation. I plug in my earphones, shut out all the noise, listen to some nice music, and I write this is exactly what I did for this story. The story is massive. I literally have to touch almost all the parts of the entire system to generate these different messages. And it's an absolute delight. I sit there, I write my test I just add my cases, usually a success case and a failure case, when I want the message to be made, and one test for when I don't want it to be created. And then I start reading some code, have a sip of water, listen to my music, and start mocking and doing the regular thing. I can't really describe it in a better way that when you have a test to fall back on, a good test that you put a lot of thought into, and you start working towards implementing the feature so that the test passes. I don't know, it's almost like Zen to me. It's, as I said, it's like meditation. I feel very relaxed. Because when I don't have the test, I have to think about all the things, and I have to really keep a lot of stuff in my head at the same time. But if I have a test-driven development approach, all I have to really do is say that, hey, I expect this to happen. And then I just have to follow along in the logic of the execution of the program and see, okay, so I need to do these things in order for this to be true, so forth. As I said, it's a fussy emotional thing for me, but to me, test-driven development is basically meditation. It's very relaxing to me. Unfortunately, it also takes a little bit longer time, so I'm very happy when I'm in a good scenario, a scenario where it's very warranted that I do test-driven development, because honestly, if I could always work in a test-driven fashion, usually I can't, because as I said, sometimes it's actually very costly to do so and it's not pragmatic. But for the most part, I really like working that way. It's slower, and I'm one of those people who I don't want to stress through things. I want to really think about it and make sure that I understand the problem, and then I understand the scope of things, and be a little bit more slow and methodical whenever I can. Of course, I can be fast as well if I need to, but for the most part, especially when I'm working on something that is, as I said, tricky. If it's difficult and tricky and a lot of complexity to it, test-driven development allows you to slow down, to take things in slow motion and be sure that you get things right. And sometimes that's a great thing, and sometimes you just want to be fast. Those are my thoughts on this stuff anyway. Hopefully you have a great day.